Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and I'm running in circles today. I literally just sat down here. I was a little bit late kicking off the intro. I literally just got through making tea, and it's so hot that I don't know if I can even drink it right now. Been sort of out of it today. I think part of it is that I had a 3-day weekend, which sort of made my brain go back into holiday mode. And then I had to go back to work today, and it was just like, I don't like it. um, but welcome. Who we got? Hey, Arcadian, welcome. Big crowds. Hey, how's it going? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a good one. How are you all? The trickster's playing around with me. Yeah, it's either a raven or a blue jay or a coyote or a rabbit. Depends on what part of North America I'm in. Uh, hey, Vern. Welcome. So, yeah, it's viewer request night. But the show itself is Adventures in History, and we talk about history, and we make fun out of it. Sometimes we make fun of it, and sometimes we make fun of me. But, it's all good. Having a good time. We'll look at some pictures later on as we go through. But yeah, viewer request night. So this is a topic chosen by our viewers, and we chose Native American mythology, which is a very broad topic. We like coyote and rabbit. Yeah. Coyotes are pretty prevalent in Native American mythology. They're all over the place. So, the thing about Native American mythology, when this topic came up, part of me realized way after the fact, like the next day, that I should have immediately turned around and done a runoff where I chose different regions of the continent of North America and then had you all choose a particular region. Because North America is a big continent. We can see it here on the map. This goes all the way down to Mexico and Central America, and all the way up to Alaska and the Arctic Circle. So this is a pretty big place, and there are a lot of different people groups in this area. Hundreds and hundreds of different tribes. It's a pretty big topic, yeah. So I sat down to start writing this, and immediately I was hit with an issue, and that is, does this stream turn into something like a 24-hour long stream where we go through all of the myths that I've ever run into in particular? It's like doing African mythology, lots of different stories, characters. Absolutely. Or even, if I said we're going to do a stream on European mythology or Asian mythology, that's a whole ton of stuff. Lots of different people. Their lifestyles are massively different. Their food supply and what they hold important are all different. And that's going to, flavor their culture. So we could have gone with a really, really detailed deep dive into big sort of breakdowns of individual important tribes and how some of those tribes had sub-tribes and some of those had yada yada yadas and how these people did these things. Or I could do a sort of very brief overview of the different regions and talk about some of the stuff. But that would leave me potentially with a very, very short stream, something that might be like 45 minutes long. So, what I have done is I have tried to strike somewhat of a middle balance where we aren't going to go super into depth with every single big tribe, but I am going to try to share a lot of individual neat little stories. And we're going to talk about these in a sort of a regional overview way, but with what I hope is an interesting amount of detail. So, one thing that I would encourage everybody to do, especially if you were one of our viewers that voted for Native American mythology, what I would encourage you to do as we're going through is to sort of keep up with what region we're in. And if you hear some stuff in our overview that seems to sort of tickle your fancy, maybe keep that in your back pocket for a sort of a deep dive, if you will. Like if somebody wanted to do just the mythology of the Southwest or just the mythology of the Great Plains, I could probably pull a stream out for all of the big regions except for maybe the really high northern Arctic tribes, because a lot of those are pretty hard to come by. There aren't as many people up there as it might seem. There I don't know. And see, that's the thing. Hey, Bloss, how's it going, man? Welcome, welcome. There might be more people up there than you think, or there might not be. Can we do ancient green gods? Or Greek? Yeah, sure. We could do Greek mythology. We could do a whole stream on that if you wanted. That would be something we could vote on later on. I've noticed that people really dig mythology. We're on, by the way, 22 viewer request episodes. How crazy is that? 22. Anubis. So Anubis is Egyptian. He had a little bit of popularity outside of the Egyptian world. Eating and typing isn't working. I hear you. Most successful Egyptian deity outside of Egypt was easily Isis. She got a really big following around the ancient world. Was big in the Roman world and the Greek world. Got over into parts of Asia as well. Isis did. Pretty neat stuff. I know a lot about mythology. I really enjoy it myself. But I've found, just by looking at sort of an overview of what we have covered so far, we've done a significant portion, almost a quarter of the viewer request episodes that we have done have been about mythology. So it's just a trend. Iktomi works for you. He and Anansi could be friends. Yeah. Anansi's pretty neat too, though. Oh, any tricky spider gods, those are pretty neat. Okay. It's like Anubis. He's pretty neutral. Yeah. Until he throws your soul to the big monster that's got the head of a crocodile and the body of a lion, and then it eats you. Oh, Egyptian death stories. All stories are Nazi stories. From a certain point of view, perhaps so. Yeah, that was due to your bad decisions you made in life. Sure. But how much does a feather weigh? And how much bad deeds does it take to make your soul outweigh a feather? These are pretty tough questions to ask. Nobody wants to go to the Duat, right? It's the dark place. Anyway, I'm rambling about other cultures that we're not even supposed to be talking about tonight, but this is what happens when we get me on religion and mythology. I sort of start branching out and rambling. So let us first talk about Native Americans in a general sense. So one thing that has always been something I like to try to talk about when I talk about Native Americans is exactly how widely disparate these people are. There are, like I said, hundreds of tribes, different languages, lots of different cultures. Some of these tribes even were large enough that they had subsections of tribes under them. And the North American continent, Aza, oh my gosh, Aza,
You're welcome.
Aza, thank you very, very much. That is so kind. I appreciate that. Um, and the corgi bits. Thank you, Aza. That's very nice. I hope you're doing well. For those of you that don't know, you should all be following Aza. Um, it always has to be corgis. Um, go give Aza a follow. Um, Fun stream to hang out in. Share some love. Okay, so as I was saying before, I was so generously and kindly interrupted. uh, you like my sweater? It's a shirt. I don't actually have a sweater. It's just got a whole bunch of Marvel characters on it, and they're from the period of time where Lionel Yu was doing the New Avengers storyline. I don't know how many people read New Avengers. This is after Avengers Disassembled, during the whole time that Brian Michael Bendis was sort of overseeing Marvel's story arcs. But New Avengers was actually quite good, and Lionel Yu did some really amazing artwork for the internals of those, and I really appreciated it. So this shirt is both figuratively and literally close to my heart. Superheroes of the New American Mythology. Vern, I have no joke, and I guess Brittany could back me up because she's heard me talk about it so much. I have very frequently wanted to teach a class called either the history of comic books or something along the lines of the history of American mythology, and cover folk tales and things of that nature, but also discuss how comic books are very literally American mythology. Hey, Mew, welcome, welcome. How's it going? I would love to teach an entire college course on that, and I think I could very easily do it in a scholarly way. So if we look at myths, the purpose of a myth by itself is to explain something that we don't understand, or it is to portray a value that our culture finds valuable, or it is to encourage good behavior along our cultural norms, or the opposites, to show a bad trait that we don't like, or to dissuade certain activity. And that's what comic books is, right? Skillshare. I've thought about doing those. I've thought about doing those. The issue right now, and potentially for the rest of the summer of this year, is that I am crunched for time. There's a professor at Kent State who incorporates comic books into some of his curriculum. I currently don't make any on Patreon, boss. I have one. And I have not actually activated it. But I had never actually considered doing little short lessons like that just for Patreon. I do, but if you go there, there's nothing there. Like, I've built the shell and I've held the URL, but I don't actually have anything made live on it. That's actually a rather interesting epiphany. I had never considered that until literally this moment. I'm going to have to consider that very seriously. Interesting. Okay. And it wouldn't be about the money. It would be more about trying to get information out there. Because that's what it's all about. Getting the information out there. I've got wheels turning within wheels right now, and I need to shut up and talk about Native American mythology. Asa, I appreciate the vote of support. That's going to be something that I seriously consider. I'm currently taking the last class that I need to finish up my master's, and then I have to take a capstone course where I either have to write a thesis or do a big project, and that's going to be over the summer. Skillshare is free money. Yeah, see, that's the thing. It is a means to an end. I know. I don't. I do it for the love of you all and for hanging out and being around a crowd that is appreciative. Also, hey Moose, how's it going, man? It does help with. Hey Motivic, welcome. I'm clearly only about the money, right? I could do this on YouTube as well. I misheard that as I do it for the love of evil. Yes, for the love of evil. Vern has dominion over tangents. Vern, Lord of Tangents. First of his name. Let's talk about Native American mythology. So, again, where we were, I was saying that there are a lot of different people in North America. And I would like to show you this picture, which I think is an interesting one. I'm glad you do this on Twitch, like interacting with somebody who studied history. Yeah, I enjoy interacting with people too. You're not saying about the money, but if you took time to learn and teach, you were entitled to some compensation. Plus, I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but, and this is going to sound super hokey, but the fact that you all are here hanging out and asking questions and being involved, to me, that is legit compensation. Every time Shane talks about, let's talk about Native American mythology, someone must take a shot or eat a chocolate. I'm going to show the image. Okay. So, here's this big image. And this is broken down into linguistic groups. And one of the things that I want to emphasize here is, and I'm not going to go through and point out every single one of them, but I do want you to look at just how many different tribes that you can see. And what I've done is tried to associate certain linguistic groups together and then cover them by region. But be aware that even this humongous amount of tribe names that you see listed here are not complete. Some of these have additional sub-tribes amongst them. Some of these have split out into different tribes that exist now. So they have sort of multiple descendants. But just look at how many different people groups there were. And even how many different linguistic groups there were. This is an enormous amount of people. So when I say it's sort of hard to talk about like Native American mythology in one big go, that's what I'm talking about. Because each one of those peoples have a particular view of the world, and while some of them, especially ones that share linguistic groups, have similar themes, all of them are going to have slightly different ideas. And, you know, if my, like Blackfoot, all right, so Blackfoot tribe is from sort of central western Canada and the region of like in the United States, somewhere like Idaho and Montana a little bit. So they are in the same linguistic group as some of the people that live down in the Ohio River Basin. So people that lived over here are part of the same linguistic group as the same people that lived over here. So their lifestyles are going to be significantly different, which means that they're going to experience different types of, worlds. Then the flora and the fauna are going to be different, which means that they're going to have different stories. Your great grandmother was Blackfoot. That's neat. I have not found any significant Native American genealogy in my family that leads directly to me. There are some in branches that are kind of my cousins, like 10 or 12th cousins way down the line, but none that directly lead to me. Again, I can't tan. You knew a lot of Pacific Northwest tribes. The city you grew up in was named after a tribe. And see, that's the thing too. A lot of the words that we use in the United States for cities and place names and rivers, a lot of people don't necessarily think of them as Native American words, like Miami. When you think Miami, you might think Latino culture, Florida, dance clubs, maybe Cuban culture, spicy food all night. But Miami is a Native American. What's up, Mississippi? Yeah, there we go. Right, exactly. Hey, KP. Father of waters. Moose is a Native American word. So there we go, right? So there are so many different peoples, so many different languages, so many different cultures that it's really going to be hard to try to do just those people. So here's what we're going to do. To begin with, we're going to talk about common themes. And this is very, very broad. Please understand that this is very, very broad. I was born in America. It's true. So, in the mythology of Native Americans, what are some common themes? Well, it's not going to be that much different than a lot of other things that you think. So, earth and sky are going to be very common themes. Plants and animals are going to have very common places. The sun and the moon, celestial bodies like that are going to have big deals. One of the things that's going to potentially separate some Native American tribes from what you might think of as, Greek or Roman mythology is that a lot of the deities or gods in Native American mythology are not anthropomorphic, which anthropomorphic is a fancy word that means looks like a human. So if you have a non-anthropomorphic god, this is something that doesn't look like a human. Some of these gods are completely without a shape or a form. They're just sort of like a disembodied spirit. But also you get a lot of sort of larger than life animals. Or you see the individual animals of the earth are sort of led by like an alpha animal. So there are, let's just take, let's say bears. You're anthropomorphic, right? So in certain Native American mythology, bears are very, very prevalent. And they thought that all bears on Earth were sort of led by a bear god, who was sort of like the apex bear, right? Same thing for most other animals. So you have these sort of alpha animals that end up being sort of deities. But they're not necessarily gods to worship. That's one thing that's a lot different. A lot of the stories of mythology in the Native American world sort of talk about dealing with the gods or the deities or the spirits, not necessarily worshiping them. In certain more advanced Native American cultures, especially those down in the Central American areas, you do get some of that. But in a lot of Native American mythology, we are going to see more of what we call an animistic mythological approach. This comes from the word animus, or what we get the word animated from. It just means spirit. They believed in spirits of things that cohabitated on the earth in a different level of existence than we do. And they weren't necessarily gods that were going to give you some sort of salvation or some sort of, miraculous event. They were just spirits to be revered and to give thanks to in appropriate times. So stuff like that. Reminiscent of Princess Mononoke. Very true, very true. An Ur-Bear, sort of, exactly. Was there a pure or first tribe? Boss, there were two different migrations that came into the Americas. The first one was about 22,000 BC, coming over from what we would call today Russia, across the Bering Strait land bridge over here. It got down to somewhere around here in the Pacific Northwest region of the United States, this British Columbia part of Canada, and they did not do so well. They were not very successful. The world was still very, very cold during that time in the last ice age, and they sort of came back up. The second group that is effectively the ancestor of all modern Native American peoples came in during a warmer period of time, around 18 or 19,000 BC, that sort of walked down a gap. By that point, the world was getting warmer again, and there was a sort of a break in the glaciers that ran right down through the middle part of the what is today the United States and Canada. And those were the ones that went down here to populate Central and South America. You see people showing up down here in Central and South America by the 16,000s BC. You see some of the big cultures here popping up in Central America pretty early, around the 200s or so BC. You start seeing organized cultures in Central and Mesoamerica, which is incredibly fast. I say this all the time too. If you look at when people first showed up in Europe, right? So the first migrations of people into Europe were about 40,000 BC. And then the first civilizations that you start seeing in, let's say somewhere like Greece, are going to be in the 3000s range. So they had 37,000 years of time of living in that area before they started founding civilized cultures. Whereas in the Native American world, these people showed up, let's say 18,000 BC, and then in significantly less time, 17,000 years, they started creating cultures that would have been equivalent to some of the earlier Greeks. Did the people that ended up in southern South America come via the north or across the Pacific? Moose, that is such an interesting question, especially down here in the coastlines of South America along the Pacific. There is a growing body of circumstantial evidence that suggests there are some ethnic ties between these people down here and some people that would have literally island hopped all the way across the Pacific. I don't know exactly how concrete some of those ideas are right now. I know that just last year there was a pretty big genetics study done. I haven't had the chance to run that down yet. I've been wanting to read that to see exactly what it said. But there are also some botanical connections with some crops that were grown throughout the Pacific Islands that appear to be similar to some of the stuff that was grown in places like Peru and Chile. I would not be surprised if in a few years there were some conclusive proofs being brought forth that connected Pacific Island spreading across these islands here to the people groups here. Even if they did that, though, I don't know where that would fall in the chronology. When you have genetic proof, it's a little bit less accurate than archaeological proof because you have to sort of estimate a lot of different stuff. If I dig something up and I can radiocarbon date it and I can tell you this is 7,000 years old, great. If I do genetic testing and I find some genetic markers that match people in Peru to people in American Samoa or Vanuatu, then we have to start playing this game of how long is a generation? What is the average lifespan of these people groups? At what age do they frequently become child producing, right? Culturally speaking, do they have kids really, really young or do they have kids when they're really, really old? And you have to make a lot of assumptions and then sort of work with those assumptions backwards through that genetic material. You have to kind of guess at how many generations have been between the persons who we have remains from in both of these places have passed. And that can be a tricky thing to do because you also then have to base things like on how frequently DNA mutates, right? So you have to get an average of how quickly DNA mutates in these populations, and it replicates itself so many thousand times or millions of times or billions of times each person's life, and how frequently it recurs, mutates, how frequently they pass on those mutations. That gets really, really complicated. And even if they did have that based on purely genetic information, I don't know if they would be able to concretely say that the people from the Pacific that got down into South America were there before the people that migrated through North America and Central America. And I know that was a really long answer to your question, but I think that was a really good one. And it deserved a full explanation instead of me just going, maybe. Right? Also, I love genetics. That is one of my sort of, that I would love to do genetic studies. So the answer is France. Yes and no. Okay, so we're talking about comparative North American mythology. We see, you know, a population geneticist? Really, Vern? I might need to talk to you about that. Okay, so you have these spirits and you have these deities. A lot of these spirits, even if they are animals to begin with, are capable of taking human shape. And you have certain spiritual entities, especially down in the Southwest, this region right around here, where you have these things called skinwalkers, which are I think the Apache word for it is Nagloshi. And these are things that can change their shape to look like multiple different species of animal or human. Sometimes this is a human that has been sort of taken by evil powers that gains the ability to become a skinwalker. It's some really complex kind of stuff. You do have a few anthropomorphic deities. They are scattered around in some of the tribes that especially get sort of a longer period of time in the higher levels of civilization. And by the way, I don't mean that negatively. Higher levels of civilization and lower levels of civilization should never be taken as an insult. It's just how quickly people develop, right? So the people in Central America developed a lot more rapidly than people did in the Great Plains. And part of that is because of population density and competition over natural resources and all that fun stuff that we've talked about before. So you do get some anthropomorphic gods down in places like the Central and Southern American areas. You get some up in the northeastern corners, and some over up in the northwestern corners. You get a few Native American gods that are human-shaped. But you have some stuff in the middle, too. You have some stuff that's like half animal, half man. A lot like we were talking earlier about Egyptian mythology. So when we mentioned Anubis, who has the body of a human and the head of a jackal. There are gods like that in the Native American world. There's one up here in the northern Canada region called Texiakratok, which was a human-bodied individual with the head of a caribou or deer, depending on which tribe you're talking about. Centaurs. Like an eagle with a human body. Yeah, sorry. Is it jackal? Jackal? Is it jackal? It's jackal? Jackal? Come on, everybody. CJ is going to do the jackal. If you got that reference, let me know that you got that reference. I'd be interested to know who got that reference. Okay, so thank you, Motivic. I appreciate that. and you cringed eternally. All right. What do we have going on here? So one of the things that it's important to admit and important to remember that there are a lot of myths and cultural elements that we have lost. We have lost some of them because they came out of prehistory and the people groups did not survive long enough into historical periods to record all of them. But it's also fair to note that a lot of these Native American cultures were wiped out by Europeans. There are a few scenes in West Wing that I have to skip when you rewatch. I've been toying around with rewatching The West Wing. I like that show a lot. I like the wit of it. I don't necessarily like the fact that it taught everybody how to do politics in a bad way. I'd vote for Jed Bartlett. Anyway, so how to mythologize the Clinton era? Pretty much, right? Pretty much. So, what about their creation stories? A lot of these tribes have different creation stories. A lot of them deal with actual travel. And one of the ones that I like a lot is the Navajo creation story. And in the Navajo creation story, the people of the Navajo were traveling through, and they started off in the first world. And there are 4 worlds in total, and they travel through all of these worlds before they get to the modern world, which is the world of light. And between each world, there are these different types of trials and tribulations. There are these different beings that live there that either try to hinder them or try to aid them. It's a really interesting story. I was in Navy, not Navajo. So each one of these groups has its own little creation story, and we'll talk about another couple of creation stories a little bit later on because I think they're kind of neat. Another thing that's common in a lot of these Native American tribes are flood stories. And these are pretty common everywhere except for the really far southwest. And you might understand why flood stories might be rare in places like New Mexico. But if you look at cultures around in the east and the south, and even up here into Canada, there are pretty common flood stories. And the flood stories even look kind of similar to flood stories that you might have heard, where there are a few travelers, and sometimes the only way that the survivors know that the waters have gone down are because of birds. So there's some really neat stuff in there. But again, it's kind of hard to ball up all of this Native American mythology into one big chunk, right? So there's that. All right. Let's start into our regional discussion. And we're going to start down here in Central America. And the way that I have this set up is that I talk about the region. I give you a few tribes that are some of the big tribes. We talk about some of the common themes. And then I tried to pick out one thing from that region that either I really, really liked or I thought was particularly important. So our tribes here in Mesoamerica and southern Mexico are ones that you may have heard of. People like the Olmec and the Toltec, the Maya, the Aztec. These are people that lived roughly in this region right in here. They're going to be the most advanced civilizations in the New World prior to European arrival. These are going to have a pretty neat collection of mythology. Hey, Edgy, what up? How's it going? Greetings. So, of the themes that you see frequently, one of the coolest ones is jaguars. Lots of jaguars. which of course you don't see in a lot of other areas because, jaguars don't live all over the place in the United States. But you see a lot of anthropomorphic gods down in this area, and you also see the primacy of thunder gods. So gods that are gods of rain and thunder. And this has a lot to do with agricultural bases. He's got a jag. Twitch is messing up. Hey, Cave, what up? We're talking about Native American mythology. Or Knockin' on Merica's Lore. I thought that was a pretty good title. Not that we're knocking it, but just knocking on it. You know what it is. It's a bad pun. And I hope you're singing that song in your head now. Anyway. So you see jaguars, and it's a callback. It is. You have been, and it's nothing but I am a giant pun. I am a walking pun incarnate. If I were a deity, I would be the god of puns. And I would have like 4 followers, and everyone would hate us. I should create the rituals of the god of puns. That would actually be really fun to do. I might work on that just as a fun side project. Another common theme that you see in Central American and Mesoamerican mythology are twin heroes. You see these show up in a lot of stories where there are these twins, and sometimes they're a boy and a girl, but other times they're both boys. And sometimes one is kind of like the good, brave twin, and the other one is still a hero, but he's kind of like the one that's not afraid to do the sketchy stuff to get stuff done kind of twin. School staff meeting briefly went through an indigenous land mapping website from Canada and looking at where they are or region on where there are region overlaps. Yes, nativeland.ca. Okay, making that nativeland.ca. Oh, I forgot the hyphen. native-land.ca. Oh, yes. Oh, that's awesome. Techman, that is great, and I'm going to go ahead and share that. I can already tell that that's amazing. This is getting bookmarked for extensive later exploration. That's a great one. Man, that's cool. Okay, I can't geek out over that right now. That is great. I'm going to share that with all of my nerd friends that are history teachers, and they always ask me like, man, how do you come up with all of this stuff? And I'm like, I know people. And mostly it's people from like Twitch or people sending me stuff on Facebook or something. They're like, hey, have you seen this? And I'm like, yeah, no, I haven't. That's great. Great teacher steal. Yeah, exactly. Look at all the shiny. Look away from the shiny tinsel. Do not get distracted. Oh man, that's great. Techman, thank you. That's really a great website. I'm really excited about looking into that. Okay. Neat thing or really cool concept from Central American mythology is they have an actual historical document that we have copies of and that we have translated. So if you want to read some actual Native American mythology in their own language, you can read the Popol Vuh. And this is a Maya story that has a lot to do with creation. This is, by the way, a scene from the Popol Vuh, and you see all sorts of cool stuff going on. You've got fire spirits, you've got a jaguar, you've got all sorts of animals, you've got a wind spirit over here, you've got all sorts of cool stuff going on. This is actually it originally was a stone carving that someone has drawn out into an image and then colorized. But there's a lot of cool stuff inside the Popol Vuh. So you can actually go check that out. It's a primary source document from the Native Americans that they wrote themselves about their mythology. And this is one of the very few instances of this sort of material inside of the New World. Really, really cool. And I would encourage you to go check it out. And you can just go to Google and type Popol Vuh full text, and you can pull it up. It's available online for free. Really neat stuff. Okay, so let's move up a little bit, and we are going to go to the Southwest. So we're going to be looking mostly at this region down in here. Some of the big tribes that you maybe have heard of before in this region, the Navajo, the Apache, the Ute, the Hopi, Pueblo, Zuni, cool tribes that you probably have heard of at least a little bit. The tribe that the town I grew up in was named after is on that map. I'm really excited about that map. I am a map fanatic. You all know this. The first thing that I showed you today was, guess what? A map. Because I'm a map fiend. Okay, so the Southwest. What are we looking at here? Someone say map? Yes. If you can scroll up in chat, I shared a link that Techman gave to me. Nerd. That has a whole bunch of Native American tribal stuff broken down. There it is again. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty wicked cool, Nick Cave. I'm excited about digging around on that, and I can't be distracted by that right now because I'm talking about I'm talking about stuff. Shared it in general chat on Discord. Thanks, Techman. You are a gentleman and a scholar. I appreciate that. Okay, so what's up with Southwestern people? Well, okay, so they have some common themes, and they're going to share a little bit of stuff with the Central American stuff, especially this twins thing. The twins thing carries over into the Southwest peoples extensively, and you see twin warrior gods of the Hopi people, and the Navajo actually have in some of their early stories. There are twin hermaphrodites that are both brothers and sisters of each other that show up in a lot of their myths. And this has a lot to do with how they thought the individual genders came to be and how everything was basically just one being initially. And they had a lot of different ideas that dealt with gender. And that's cool stuff that you can go look at if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Another common theme that you see inside Southwestern peoples are these things called cochina. And I should type this word out. So a cochina is either a deity or it is a physical embodiment of a certain place. The fancy Latin word for it is genius loci. Hey, Laugh of Mamba, welcome. A spirit of a place. So there were sacred places like mountains and rivers and valleys, and some of these had a cochina of that place. Others were specifically cochinas of certain gods or manifestations of things. But what's interesting about these is that they were very frequently made into little dolls, like this guy. This is a Hopi cochina, and they were frequently given to children as well, first off, clearly kids like playing with dolls, right? So this is a cool thing to play with. Well, I'm sorry, I should say to preserve hyper masculine pride. If you don't want to call the cochina a doll, you can call it a mythical action figure. Anyway, These were given to people that you wanted to be protected. So I have killed Asa. So these are figures that are supposed to be protection. They are going to keep you safe and keep the loved ones safe. Sometimes you would give them to people that had done something to protect you as a symbol that they had sort of acted as this protection for you. So these are pretty neat. I like cochinas a lot, and you can see them a lot all over the Southwest. And one of the things that you see very frequently if you go to museums, especially Native American museums or things like that, you see lots of these cochina, like a Native American Gundam. Much less robotics, but I'll allow it. I'm in a good mood. I'll allow it. So, in the southwestern region, there is one story that I would like to share with you as the sort of neat thing from this region. One of the things that you see a lot in Native American mythology, and you see this in a lot of cultures' mythology all over the world, is myths that explain why animals look a certain way, right? Like, why do kangaroos jump, and why do snakes not have legs, and yada yada yada. You hear like all of this stuff a lot. So one of my favorite stories from this region is about the beaver. And the story goes that the animals and the people of the earth, yes, also and that's another thing I should note, that a lot of these words that I'm using are translated from the original language and can be transliterated in multiple spellings. That's a fair point, Vern. Many thanks. So the story goes that men and the rest of the animals were very cold, and that fire existed in the cosmos, but not necessarily on Earth. And that the beaver saw how cold the people on Earth were, and it sort of made him sad. And so he decided that he was going to help them help them get fire. But, it's across this big sort of gulf of water. And the only thing that he could think of to do was that, since he could float on the water and swim, was that he put the fire on his tail. And then he swam across the great cosmic distances in the water and delivered the fire to humans. But in the process of doing that, his tail was burnt to a flattened crisp, which is why beavers have big flat tails. So there you go. If you've ever wondered why a beaver has a big flat tail, it's because you like sitting in the heat during the winter. You're welcome, humans. I love that little story. It's so great. And I've got a few more of those little ones that I'll share as we go. Okay, so beaver's good eating. I don't know if I've ever had beaver or not. I've had nutria, which is like a beaver but with a file tail, and he's basically a giant rat. This is how animals were made. Better than what happened to the bear's tail. It is better than what happened to the bear's tail. Okay, so let's move up a little bit, and we will move to sort of this region right in here, which is the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia, this sort of coastal region here. And this is the region of the Northwest. So people out in this area, tribes that you might have heard of, the Haida, the Chinook, the Nuxalk, or the Kwewekawakwa. Yep, that's actually a tribe. Kwekwekwaka. And some themes that you see up in this area are lots of ravens. Ravens are a really big deal up in this area. I did not say that at all. I said Nooksalk. And it's one of the ways to spell it is this Nooksalk. And the other one was Kwe Kawak. So that's Kwe Kawakwa. Which is actually a thing. Yes, I remember the epic rant. Was it that though? I'll take your word for it. But anyway, I knew it was something not safe for worky like that. So anyway, what are the common themes? Ravens. Ravens are a really big thing up in the Northwest region. And they're very frequently seen as tricksters. But sometimes, depending on what tribe you're in, the tricksters are like we'll play a trick on you, but we're really just trying to like be playful and like, practical joke, ha. And people go, oh, you ravens. Or sometimes they're like the trickster gods, like that gets you in trouble and you like trip you up and do that. Nevermore, bro. Nevermore. Right, exactly. You also see a lot of bears in this area and salmon. One of the most common themes of the Northwest is salmon. And they are seen as a gift from the gods because they are plentiful and super tasty. I love salmon. Tricksters are always trying to do good. Nothing would change without them. Perhaps. One of the things that you see up in this area also are pretty frequent occurrences of shape changing. And the image that I have here to show you is sort of deals with that. What we have here is what's called a transformation mask. So you would have, and this is from the Koiwe Kawakwa tribe. You would have this sort of outer mask that would look one way, and then you would pull on this little string here, and it would reveal a second mask under it. Which is sort of the changed shape. And you see these frequently with a lot of different configurations. Sometimes there'll be like ravens on the outside and a human on the inside. Sometimes there'll be other animals on the outside and then a human on the inside. These are pretty cool stuff though. And if you know anything about the Northwestern Native American people, you can also see a similarity in that artistic style and things like totem poles, which are pretty common up in that area as well. As are Sasquatch, the Bigfoot. Yeah, that's a pretty big, well, it's not a big thing, but you do see occasional myths of the Sasquatch in that area. But that's actually not the story that I want to share with you. I'd like to share with you a story as the neat thing from this area, a raven story. And this is a thing where the raven did some tricky stuff, but it ended up being for the good. So, essentially, way back, and this is a myth of the Haida people. So, the story goes that the world was originally covered in darkness. Oh, let me see this. Loki, only man that said, challenge accepted when someone said you can't kill him. Right. And then he also got smacked by the Hulk, but that's in Marvel, not actual mythology. So anyway, the story goes that there was perpetual darkness and the entire world was covered with darkness because the old man had all of the light. And this concept of the old man is a pretty common thing that you see in a lot of Native American myths. And the old man is either the spirit of everything or the great spirit or some sort of non-human entity that has a lot of power. You grew up in Oregon, you didn't see him. Now, I'd heard that you've not had the Sasquatch come over for coffee yet here in the Northwest. I might have to go to Oregon or British Columbia. You grew up in Oregon and never saw him? Um, yeah, so puny god. Okay, so this old man had light, and he had it in a box, and that box was inside another box, and that box was inside another box, and those boxes were inside hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other boxes. So basically, a box in a box times 1,000, right, or something like that. A great number of boxes. And he didn't want to let the light out because he had a daughter. And he was really afraid that his daughter was horrendously ugly. And if there was light in the world, everybody would be able to tell that his daughter was horrendously ugly. Hey, Joey, welcome. How's it going? And he didn't want everybody to know that his daughter was horrendously ugly. But the Raven decided that he was going to fix this problem. He wanted to bring light to everybody. So what he did was transformed himself into a baby that he basically kind of like miraculously conceived himself inside of the old man's daughter and was born as the old man's grandson in human form. And because he was the grandson of the old man, he, as a child, started asking his grandfather to do him favors. Like, grandfather, would you open this box? And the grandfather would open one box. And he's like, okay, would you open one more? And would you open one more? And would you open one more? And over time, the Raven sort of whittled down the old man's resolve. And eventually, the old man had all of the boxes open except for the last one that had the light in it. And the Raven finally, after many, many attempts of wheedling the old man, convinced him to open the final box. And as soon as the Raven saw the light, he immediately transformed back into a raven, grabbed the light, and then flew out into the world. And of course, then brought light to everything in the universe. And initially, the old man was just furious because he had been tricked and he was just incensed. And then he decided, I'm going to have to look at my daughter. And it turned out that she was a knockout, so he kind of got over it. Like, okay, you're a good-looking girl, so I'll forgive the Raven for sharing light with the world. Which is all sorts of weird as a story, but I thought that one was kind of neat. Like, you know, as long as she's good looking, it doesn't really matter that light was stolen, right? Vern, I did not intend for that to prove your point. I had planned that prior to, and it just so happened to fall into that category. So I don't want everyone to think that I have conspired with Vern behind the scenes. It just so happened that the story that I chose proved his point. Not that I would mind conspiring with Vern behind the scenes. I think Vern and I put together would probably hatch some pretty wicked plans. The world would be our burrito. Is that the origin of pretty privilege? Magnificent, I don't know. Maybe. And also welcome. How are you? Hey, MC Forn. You missed a whole hour, but we've still got more to go. We've still got more stories. We've still got more people groups. We've got more stuff to talk about. So you have not missed the whole thing. And welcome. How are you tonight? Or today, wherever you are located. Check the chat history. Okay, so we are going to move now to the Great Plains region. This sort of area right in here. You're great. You really wanted to watch this. Awesome. Well, you can hang out with us right now, and then when the stream ends, this will immediately go up for VOD, and you can roll back and catch up the stuff that you missed. So you haven't actually missed anything except for maybe a little bit of back and forth banter, which was full of me just being super cheesy and kind of goofy. So I don't know how much you care about all of that. Okay, so who are our people groups? Some of the big people groups here of the Great Plains that you might have recognized. But the Apache, Comanche, the Arapaho, the Lakota, the Pawnee. Um, these are probably ones that you've heard of. Dakota, Sioux. So Hopi are down in this region, down here in the Southwest. And also, hey Neil, how's it going? You get some that are over here a little bit, but if we're up in the sort of kind of the Dakotas region, um, Hopis don't get too far out into that area. By the way, is there a way to group VODs? It's a bit hard to fish out the topics there. I try to keep them numbered. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through. I think if you do click on videos, let me actually walk you through this, because I have tried my best to keep them separated a little bit. I don't know how good at it I've been. Collections. I should probably make collections. I thought I had made some collections. So if you... Now I'm going to hear myself. Videos. Filter by... if you filter by highlights, these videos are temporarily unavailable. Okay, let's not do that. Let's filter by collections. If you filter by collections, you can see Adventures in History, basically in order, going back to episode 31. I need to do some catch-up maintenance on those. So if you go to my Twitch page and you click my name to get to the sort of larger page, you click videos, and then you filter by collections. I have a collection specifically for viewer request streams that are in order, and I have one for the Adventures in History main show in order. And I think I thought I had one for Gundam builds too, but apparently I don't. I don't know how many people want to go back and watch a VOD of me building a Gundam model. I don't know. Filter by collections. That's it. Cool. Okay. So, Great Plains. Common themes for the Great Plains. Buffalo. Easily number one. You can get a lot of buffalo stories. You see the power of winter showing up a lot. And part of this is due to just the very basic nature of living on the Great Plains. Without agriculture, these people being nomadic, hunter-gatherers, winter is a rough time. You're stuck out in the open. There aren't a lot of, forests on the Great Plains. There are places with trees, sure, rivers and, areas of that nature, but it gets real cold in that area. So the power of winter, you see that show up in a lot of their mythology. And also eagles. Since you're an EU, you just sometimes happen to be an insomniac enough to catch, but usually you just have to fish out the VODs. I understand. And I appreciate you spending your time with us when you could be sleeping. I've gone through insomnia for the majority of my adult life. I do not envy that at all. White walkers, snow dragons, yeah, that kind of stuff. Eagles are a big deal. Eagles were seen as a sort of central mythological theme. The eagles were the sort of the king of the birds, and you see stuff like this, which I'm sure that you've probably seen at least someone make a note of if you've ever seen a movie. So this is an eagle feather headdress, but I wanted to actually give a little bit of background and concept to what this actually meant. So you see people wearing these, And you don't really ever get any context of that stuff. So, in a lot of these Great Plains tribes, the right to wear an eagle feather was something that you earned based on certain actions. For example, if you went into battle and you were the first person in your group that drew blood from the enemy and you escaped unharmed, you might get an eagle feather or maybe two. So when you see someone wearing a full headdress of eagle feathers, that signifies that this person has done a lot of wicked cool stuff. So that is part of the reason why they might be the chief. It wasn't that the chief just automatically got to wear this really cool big headdress. It wasn't something that was designated specifically just to the person being the chief. This was a person who had done a lot of stuff that was seen as really flippin' neat or worthy of remembrance or worthy of being mimicked, right? These are people that are heroic. You met Chief Depot on the Oregon coast. He was neighbors of your great-grandmother. We have home movies of him showing us a bunch of stuff. That headdress reminded me of it. Cool. If there are movies that you can share, that would be neat. And I'm not saying you have to go spend hundreds of dollars to get VCR tapes turned over into DVD stuff or anything like that. But if it's an easy thing to do and you'd like to share that, that would be cool. So if you see a Native American in a movie and that person is wearing one or two or maybe 4 or 5 eagle feathers, that symbolizes that person has done something cool, right? So headdress is not just for the chief. Every one of those feathers represents something that person did. So there you go. Okay. Neat thing from the Plains natives. Let's talk about buffalo. Can you share something? Sure, Foreign, go for it. There's no block on links or pictures or anything like that. So as long as it's, not super nasty and not safe for work, feel free to share whatever you need to. Or whatever you feel like. So here's the story about buffalo. And this is a Blackfoot story. So this actually comes from the Canadian region of the Plains. And if Bloss is still in the channel and wanted to hear a story of his ancestral people, here you go. This is sort of a fortuitous event here. So in the original Blackfoot world, buffalo were really mean and they would constantly trample humans. And they would find these humans, and every time they saw the humans, they would run at them and trample them and cause the humans to flee and run away. So the old man's son, so this is Old Man's Son. And I should change this because we're no longer talking about the Haida people. We're talking about the Blackfoot people. As long as it's not safe for work. Yes, that's what I meant. So the headdresses were also used today for someone with recognition of the tribe that they are important. Definitely not created a headman, but done enough. Yeah, exactly. They needed to be inducted to the Headman Society. Right. So it's not just like the headdresses weren't immediately attached to the position. They were a symbol of something that a person had accomplished. Like they had reached a level of being worthy to wear that. You live in Alberta, head smashed into buffalo. Yeah, so there we go. So the buffalo were mean and they killed people all the time. So the son, who is the old man in this story, went to the humans and he was like, why don't you guys stand up to the buffalo? And they're like, do you see these things? They're huge. They're giant and they're mean and they run at us and they gore us with their horns and they trample us with their hooves and they're just horrible. They're mean. And the old man goes, I've got something for you. Let me show you how to do something. So the old man takes them into the woods and he finds some young trees and he cuts them down, and he's like, so here's how you do this. And he shaves them down, and he shows them how to make the springy wood, and then he shows them how to make a string, and he makes them a bow, and then he finds a straight stick, and he shaves it down so that it's nice and thin, and he shows them how to make a point so that they can chip this out of a rock and make this a point. And then he takes eagle feathers, and again, here's the importance of the eagle, and he takes 3 of them and makes the fletching for the arrow, and then he tells the people how to shoot the bow. And he says, next time the buffalo run at you, don't get out of their way, just shoot them. And so the humans are like, that still seems like this I mean, this little thing they're big, and is this really going to work? And he's like, just trust me, this will work. So the humans get their bows and arrows, and the buffalo see them, and the buffaloes just like start charging at them, and they don't move. And instead, they shoot the buffalo, and the buffalo get real freaked out, and they're like, holy crap, what is that? They can kill us from afar. And from that point forward, the balance between humans and buffalo shifted. But because the buffalo were remembered as skilled and powerful beasts, you didn't kill the ones that you didn't need, right? So when you killed a buffalo, you had to respect the buffalo, and you used all of the different parts of the buffalo. So there's a mutual level of respect between the native people and the buffalo for that. VHSs are in storage. Won't be seeing it anytime soon, but if you ever share it, I will. Cool, appreciate that. That'd be cool. With the buffalo, the Lakota have a story of when a buffalo used to eat people. Then the people called upon the Creator to help them. So there was a race of the 2-legged versus the 4-legged. The fastest runner for the 4-legged was the buffalo, and the fastest of the 2-legged was the man. Towards the end, the man was losing, but the 2-leggeds won the race because a magpie hit on the back of the buffalo and flew ahead at the end, and the winner got to eat the buffalo. But the long hair on their chins of the buffalo signify the hair of people. Huh. I had never heard that one before. That's neat. Thank you for sharing that, Forn. All right, so what do we got here? We got the head smashed in buffalo jump. Is a buffalo jump located in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, began as a rise from the prairie 18 meters in Fort Macleod, Alberta, Canada on Highway 87. It's a UNESCO heritage site and home of the Museum of the Blackfoot Culture. Instrumental in developing site, Chuck Christians imagine heritage, dedicated life of preserving Aboriginal culture and promoting a relationship between Aboriginal and Aboriginal people. Neat. The buffalo jump was used 5,500 years by the indigenous people of the plains to kill buffalo by driving them off the 11-meter high cliff. Before the late introduction of horses, the Blackfoot drove the buffalo from grazing area in the Porcupine Hills about 3 kilometers using the drive lanes. Neato! Now I've got a reason to go up to hang out in Canada. Not that I didn't have other reasons to go hang out in Canada either, but that's pretty neat. Pretty cool stuff. Sorry you're late. Hey, Hunk, how's it going? Buffalo Girls, can you come out tonight? And we'll eat wings by the light of the moon. Isn't that how it goes? Long story short, they were able to gather a meat for the winter by herding the buffalo off a cliff. Right. That's cool stuff. I did not know that there were actually places that had been designated as specific areas where they did that. So that's cool stuff. I kind of want more tea, but I don't get it. Cliff notes. Cliff notes. Cliff notes. Notes about cliffs. Anyway, shut up. Moving along. Okay, let's go over here to the Great Lakes region in the Northeast. Over here. This good old region. Grown. Hey, it's a bad pun. Anyway, who are we talking about? People-wise. Seneca, Oneida, Ho-Chunk, Ojibwa, Wampanoag. These are the peoples. These are some of the peoples of the Northeast. Common themes that we see here. We see lots of turtles in this area, especially turtles that are the base of the universe. And now I know that Vern is going to immediately start making references to Sir Terry Pratchett, which I can absolutely appreciate, by the way. But you see here the turtle bearing basically the rest of the world on its back. It's kind of like Discworld, but in an actual real concept. So that's a real thing in a lot of these regional mythologies. And the stories, and I'm going to give multiple stories from this area because I kind of like these stories. The idea is that all of the animals were together and there was no land. And the animals couldn't live very easily in the water, and the humans couldn't live in the water. So there was this giant pond or lake, and several different animals tried to dive down, and they couldn't do it. So eventually a muskrat, I don't know why a muskrat, but a muskrat dove way down into the water, all the way to the bottom, and scooped up all of the dirt that he could carry and brought it back up. But then he didn't have anywhere to put it. And the turtle was like, oh, just put it on my back. So then they put all of the dirt on the back of the turtle, and that's Earth, basically. You like turtles? I like turtles. Another story of the Lakota is that there was a group of Lakota that left the cave, look up Wind Cave National Park, and the world wasn't ready, so the creator made them buffalo. Huh. I didn't know that one either. See, and this is the thing, like there are so many different stories it would be almost impossible to tell all of them. Turtle Island, there we are. So you see turtles a lot. And you also see tobacco. One of the things that you get a lot from this area is tobacco being a divine plant that is a gift from the deities, the great spirits or the creator. Tobacco was, of course, used in a lot of ceremonies, and it was the first cash crop of the New World for the British. So is that why flat earthers are so confused? Indeed. They just think that the world's on the back of a turtle. Now, if you're a fan of Discworld, the world is actually flat, and it's on the back of 4 elephants, and the elephants stand on the turtle, and the turtle moves. The Hobbit's leaf. Yes. Old Hobold Hornblower. Tobold Hornblower. The first one to create the use of leaf down in the South Farthing. Which is why the best leaf is still called Old Toby. There's a free Tolkien fact for you. Did they try eating it, find out that it tasted terrible, decide to burn it, and then think, whoa, at least it smells nice? I would suspect that it had something to do with burning brush or clearing brush for crops and then burning this weed and then people going, hey, that weed kind of smells nice when you burn it, and then figuring out you could actually do other stuff with it. I mean, they may have tried to eat it and then realized that it tasted horrible and threw it into the fire, and then everybody was like, hey, that's kind of nice. So there we go. Got to go get working. All right, Cave. Take it easy. I didn't say to go follow Cave, but you should totally go follow Cave. He's a cool guy. He does awesome art stuff. And he's doing pet portrait stuff. So he's currently burning pet portraits and then painting them in on leather using his traditional styles. So cool stuff. Cave Geek. Old Toby is a great pipe tobacco. It's named after the Tolkien stuff. Yes, you should go follow Cave. He's a cool guy. And you should follow the Incredible Hunk Live too. You should go follow him. All cool streamers. Lots of cool streamers in the chat tonight. Okay, so neat story from the Northeast region. Other than you get 2 stories from out there because I really like the turtle story. This is another one of those how animals are made. and it has to do with the porcupine. I think porcupines are one of the weirdest looking animals on Earth. And anytime I could tell a good porcupine story, I'm going to tell it. So the story goes that porcupine was always getting eaten and basically hounded by bears. And the bears would always kill the porcupines and eat them, and porcupines got real sad about that. So the porcupines started running and hiding, and eventually the creator, the old man with the great spirit, saw the porcupines and like, porcupines, why are you sad? And they're like, man, the bears are constantly eating us and they're killing us and they're wrecking our worlds. And so the old man tells him to hide in a hawthorn tree. And so the porcupine, the next time the bear is coming after him, goes and runs up into a hawthorn tree. And because the hawthorn tree has big thorns on it, the bear can't get to him. So the porcupine decides, oh, I've got it figured out now. And he sort of crafts himself this covering of thorns from the hawthorn tree so that the bear can't get him. And the next time the bear shows up, guess what? He can't eat the porcupine because of the big thorns. And over time, it just sort of becomes part of the porcupine because all of the other porcupines start wearing these things, and this is how the porcupine got its thorns from the hawthorn tree, dealing with trying to get not eaten by bears. Not being eaten by bears is a good thing. Nobody really needs to get eaten by bears. Don't get eaten by bears. Okay. So what about the Southeast? My neck of the woods down in here. Well, big groups down here: Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, Seminole. I would like to think that not getting eaten by bears is a good thing. I agree. Nobody really wakes up in the morning and goes, I'd really like to be eaten by a bear today. Probably not something that gets said very often. Anyway, what do you get to see down in this area? Well, suns are really important, the S-U-N. I have never been eaten by a bear, so I have no basis of knowledge for this. I don't want to have empirical proof of this through personal experience, though, so. Noted, not go mountain climbing and poke random bears. Yes, exactly. So the sun, the S-U-N, is a big deal in a lot of these areas. The sun was seen as the spirit, the giver of things, agriculturally based kind of stuff. Also, for Vern, your trickster gods of the Southeast are rabbits. So the tricky little people and deities down in the Southeast are the rabbits because they seem to be able to disappear and pop up at different places, and they're also very, very fast, and they can do stuff and then run away, and you can't ever really catch them. So there you go. One neat thing that you see a lot in Southeastern stuff, and this isn't necessarily... It kind of is mythology, but it's also a little bit more like religious practice. They could take out whole crusades of knights. Exactly. Reminds me of the picture that Pick shared with our KP shared. That I can't claim finder's fee of that meme that I shared with the rabbit today. KP showed that to me first. But I stole it and I totally shared it. So, anyway, so there are these things that you see pretty frequently down in the Southeast called green corn ceremonies. And these are usually multiple day affairs where people try to get themselves in tune with nature again. This is sort of a hybrid New Year's festival, harvest festival, and religious retreat. So it's got a lot of different layers wrapped up in it. But the idea is that at this green corn ceremony, you would have a big feast with the last food from last year's harvest. There would be a lot of dancing. I've got a picture of this stuff. Well, that's a picture of a bunch of people on the back of a turtle. This is a green corn ceremony. And I know it's kind of small, and this is an interpretation of what one would have looked like. But you can see the corn sort of hanging here in this larger four-posted platform thingy? Rig? Anyway. Icto. Yep. They could take out the whole Crusader Knights. In your experience, green corn isn't a good thing? Well, in this section, or this method, it is. So on the first day, you have this big feast. You eat the last of last year's food. You have some dances. On the second day, you have some more dances. And you drink some stuff that makes you puke. There's this particular beverage that is designed to basically make you puke your guts up. And this was seen as sort of a religious purification thing, where you were kind of getting all of the negative from last year out. And you're getting yourself ready for this new year with these new crops and with this green corn. And then you'd have another feast, because you would clearly be hungry, with the new stuff. And then there would be another day full of dancing and stuff. But this was a pretty religious concept, because it had a lot to do with kind of centering yourself with nature, and how nature is born and dies in a cycle. So you're sort of tying yourself into this. And this green corn ceremony shows up a lot in stories. People have these weird experiences with animal spirits during the purging and fasting, or fasting and purging phase. Ironically, some people do that for New Year's, but not intentionally. Yeah, oh crud, I just closed my images, and I bet if I try to open them again, it's going to mess up. Stink. Why did I do that? Oh no, it showed back up. Hey, look at there. Well, you don't need to see that yet. Maybe OBS solved its issues. Can't you just poop out the bad stuff? No, you've got to get rid of the bad stuff immediately so that you can get all the new good stuff in. I used to sneak out into a cornfield when you were small and eat tiny fresh corn during the summer before the harvest. It was really sweet. Ah, there we go. It's your own kind of green corn ceremony. And Mardi Gras and Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day. So effectively all of the holidays that Americans have co-opted from other cultures. Okay, so here's a fun story, and I was hoping that that we would have a Daria in the chat tonight. Daria Axanova, friend of the show, frequent viewer of the show, and a person that you should all be following, has a pet opossum, and I was hoping that if she were here, I could tell her an opossum myth that she would love. So I have an opossum myth from the Southeast for you all, and this is another how an animal got its shape, or how animals were made. I guess I could text her, but she's worked crazy. She's got a lot of stuff going on last couple of days. I don't blame her for not being here, by the way. I'm not saying how dare she do this. That's not what I'm coming after. So here's the story. So the opossum lived in a cave and had some babies. And a bat that also sort of lived in the cave. There's Kyle. Hey, Kyle. Hey, Gypsy. Welcome. We're talking about Native American mythology. And please do know that I'm not guilting Daria for not being here, by the way. I did this in preparation in case she was here. I like the story anyway. I would have told it even if she weren't here, because I'm clearly telling it now. Anyway. So In the cave, there was also a bat. And the bat is not a nice animal in the story and steals the opossum's baby and flies off to another cave. And the opossum gets very sad, as one would if children were stolen. And so the opossum goes to the rabbit and says, "Rabbit, use your wiliness to go get my babies back." So the rabbit goes and tries to get the babies back and can't do so. And so then the opossum goes to the fox, who is sort of also a cunning and wise individual, and says, "Would you go get my babies?" And the fox tries and can't get the babies back from the bat. And then eventually the opossum goes to the turtle, who was seen as sort of the wisest of all of the animals. What did the fox say? That's my favorite one, by the way, of that whole song. So the turtle goes and, using his wisdom, returns the babies to the opossum. And the opossum at that point is so grateful to the turtle, and the turtle asks him, like, how do I not lose my babies again? And the turtle's like, "I've got an idea." So the turtle actually cuts open the opossum's stomach and puts the babies down in the pouch and says, "This way you'll not ever lose your babies again." And so this is the story of how opossums got pouches, because opossums are marsupials, so they raise their young in a pouch. So that's how some of the Native Americans in the Southeast thought that happened. Pretty cool story. I'm so glad that the "what does the fox say" makes everybody happy. Also, it proves that if you have questions, you should just go ask the turtle. Which, in a really weird way, is a callback to that old Tootsie Roll Pop commercial. You go ask the owl is a symbol of wisdom. You go ask the turtle is a symbol of wisdom too. Yeah. 3, by the way. Relevant to the babies. I love you, babies. Is this a parrot like actually talking to its babies? Oh my gosh. Birds are too smart. That's creepy, and I'm slightly disturbed. Neat, but that's weird. I like turtles too. They're pretty cool stuff. I'm the guy that stops on the road in the middle of the traffic to like pick the turtle up and move it. So that it doesn't get squished in the road. Mind your own business. I don't know what that means. Mind my own business. I mean, birds are neat, but that's too much smarts for a bird. That was kind of scary. Okay. So, our last zone of the night. Mind a bird. I gotcha. I missed that initially. Our last region of the night is up here. If you have time, you should listen to these stories by a traditional storyteller. Ooh. Would you throw that in the Discord for me? Hollow Horn Bear. That looks really cool. For those of you that are not familiar or would like to join, we have a Discord. Boop. We only have pet turtles here. Apparently there is one wild turtle species and you're part of the EU, but you've never seen them. Turtles are pretty common in my area. We get turtles in our yard all the time, and I I have to shoo our dog away because our dog likes playing with them, and does not play well with others. She doesn't mean to be mean. She just wants to play, but she ends up playing too rough. Okay, so up in this area we have the Arctic and subarctic tribes. Many thanks, Forn. I need to make a videos channel. I might do that sometime. The courtyard outside of my office has 11 turtles in it. I was unaware. Are they gopher tortoises or are they actually turtles? Okay, so people in this area, the Gwich'in, the Dogrib, the Caribou, the Inuit. One thing that I would warn people about is using the word Eskimo. That word is not necessarily something that people use to identify themselves. That is a word that was used by Europeans to describe those people. So it's based on a Native American word from one of their languages, but it's not necessarily how they would identify themselves. Behold the turtle of enormous girth. On his back he holds the earth. Indeed. So what's up with this region? What's going on with some common themes in their area? Well, caribou. Caribou are a big deal up in this area. They're one of the few large mammals that live in this region. They are a big source of food. Also, whales and fishing stories, especially from over in this region around the Hudson Bay and Newfoundland area. You see a lot of stories about big fishes and whales, which are a pretty big deal for a lot of these people. Clean burning whale oil, indeed. So, Dunwall lit and warm. I still need to play that second game. I haven't played that yet. I think I'm going to make that a prognosis. I'm going to play Dishonored 2 next. I still need to finish Watch Dogs 2. I haven't played all the way through it. I haven't played very many games at all lately, just to be honest. I've been just kind of out of it. I've been trying to go to bed earlier, and I usually play games at night, so I've been cutting in on my gaming time. Anyway, okay, so common themes. Caribou, big deals. Whales are big fishes, big deals. Marrying non-humans. There are a lot of stories from this area where human beings will end up marrying either animals or animal spirits that are in the guise of humans. And there's just a lot of that wearying stuff. Shane plays Despacito. That song is so not safe for work if you understand. Like, if you know Spanish and read the lyrics to Despacito, it's kind of pervy. It's really not a song that I don't think it would get a lot of airplay in America. Well, I don't know. I say that, but a lot of the stuff that gets airplay in America is pretty pervy too. So maybe it would be a bigger hit if people knew how pervy it was. Go look up translations for the lyrics to Despacito. Another one that is weirdly not safe for work. The Macarena. Not the easiest song if you remember that two old men are singing it. Anyway, side notes and weirdisms just kind of float around in a haze around us, right? All right, so another big theme up in this area, of course, is winter. Winter, of course, is a huge deal for these people. Starvation is a constant threat. They live right on the edge of stuff. So the power of winter and the threat and emptiness of winter show up in a lot of their myths. Tangent powers are growing. So the story that I want to tell you, Wendigo, yeah. Is Gangnam Style safe for work? Kinda. It's got some parts that are weird. like some of the stuff that the whole story about Gangnam Style. Gangnam is a region in Korea, and it has a particular like dress style, and the song itself is talking about how he likes girls that sort of follow this Gangnam Style archetype. And some of the stuff is like goofy, like he likes his women that drink their coffee in one big gulp. So Gangnam Style has no true lyrics. You just kind of say like hey and all that stuff, and hey sexy lady, that's a part of it, right? Shape of You, Pervy 2, and on commercial radio all the time. Yeah, so I should probably backtrack on that a little bit, right? Weird is Safe. I would guess. You could go look up all of these things if you want to. Just go Google like Gangnam Style lyrics translated. So the story that I want to share with you is that. Did I spell that right? Nope. I put an extra I in there. Nope. What am I doing? The Qualupilot. And Qualupilets look like this. Yeah, they're kind of these weird, long-limbed, creepy-looking things. Yeah, not the good things. But what's interesting about the story of the Qualupilot, yeah, is that they are the story that teaches you not to do something. So the story goes that the Qualupilot live under the ice, and they can reach up and snatch children from the edges of the water. And you know that one is around when you start walking on the ice and you hear it cracking. That's the Qualupilot trying to like get through the ice to grab you and drag you down under. And they are especially active during the springtime. And what this is actually teaching our children to do is, hey, during the springtime when all the ice is melting, don't go walk out on the thin ice, you dum-dum, because you're going to fall in the water. So the story is a legend that teaches you not to walk on the thin ice. And these things target children. So these are like the under the ice boogeymen that will reach up and grab you if you're walking around on the thin ice. So don't do that, or the Qualupilot will come after you. And nobody wants that, right? So, okay, ladies and gents, that is our survey of Native American mythology. And again, that is a very, very brief survey of a lot of stuff from all over the Native American, North American continent. So we've been from Mexico to Alaska tonight, and from Canada on the Atlantic to California on the Pacific. Your type of women. Okay, so now do a full mythology on all of them. Yeah, see, this is already a pretty long stretch of a show. Imagine if I had gone into all of the stories for all of those tribes, and we would have been here for forever. Polish equivalent of boogeyman might be licho. Did not know that. That'd be cool to talk about, though. Love to talk about the Lakota Plains people. Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. I need to open up Twitch because we need to choose another topic for the next few request streams. So, Kelly Howlett, are you in the chat tonight? I don't see Kelly Howlett in the chat tonight. That's okay. Kelly redeemed a Name Your Own Adventure, but then she selected To Be Determined. So, so I don't know what that means. So we are going to go ahead And we're going to do a new poll to pick the next viewer request episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring over the last winner, or the last number 2. The last runner-up was Japanese art. So what I need from you all, and I'm going to take the first 3 options that I think are legitimate, that I could get a whole episode out of. What are the things you want to talk about? Name them now, and I'll take the first 3 that pop up, and then we'll have a vote. History of Japanese animation. I would probably roll that into Japanese art and just do sort of a larger thing. Bloss, we have already done the Mayans. If you go to the VODs, you can watch the Mayans. We have already done that one. We're actually getting back around to doing that in the actual rundown of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to put History of Japanese Art and Animation. And we'll just lump that in with what we have. Japanese Mythology. That one sounds fun. The Battle of New Orleans. Sounds good. Okay, so I don't know if I'd be able to do an entire story on just that battle. Let's back that up to the War of 1812, KP, if that works for you. Which includes the Battle of New Orleans. Is that 4? No. Hokusai. So we would almost certainly cover Hokusai and printmaking in the Japanese stuff. Ainu mythology. We'll cover some Ainu stuff if we do that. The Huns. We've also done the Huns in a stream before. Okay. We'll just do Japanese and Ainu mythology. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Civil rights era in United States. Cool. Okay, we are done. No, Bloss, what it means is that you've had excellent ideas that other people have also already had. History of dinosaurs. That would be an interesting one to do. All right, so here are our 4. And I'm going to hit start poll. And above you in chat, if you click the little down caret, you will be able to see the options. I don't know what I would do with the history of dinosaurs. That's a pretty big thing, like the history of how humans have discovered dinosaurs or the history of all dinosaurs. Because if it's the history of all dinosaurs, that's enormous. That's millions of years worth of history. And explained why dinosaurs aren't burbs. Our national anthem comes from the War of 1812. Yes, it does. Battle of Baltimore. History of dinosaurs, we would need to narrow that down a lot. I don't know exactly how we would handle history of dinosaurs. That's a lot of history. Wow, Japanese mythology is pulling away in the lead. Mythology is very popular. Fontaine's like, I'll take whatever. Just explain why dinosaurs aren't burbs. Because of evolutionary change over time. Dinosaurs aren't burbs because the same reason that Homo sapiens aren't Homo heidelbergensis. Thousands and thousands of generations of genetic change that led from one thing to the next. We're coming up on the end, so if you have not voted, please go do so. Could break dinosaurs down into their eras. Yeah, we could. We could do stuff like the Triassic and the Jurassic, but I don't know how much history that would be. It would mostly just be like, here are all of the cool things that happened in that time period. Jost on you. You're an educated parakeet. Just a thought. Also, you used to be a dinosaur. Okay, so with a pretty decent lead, we have Japanese and native Ainu mythology. So that's what we'll do on the next viewer request stream, which will not be next Tuesday, but the subsequent. What is that? February the 2nd? Yes, February 2nd. Will these be like jinns and stuff? So jinns are Arabic in origin. This is going to be stuff like Amaterasu and Susanoo Motoko and Izanami and Izanagi. The Japanese pantheon of Shinto, and we'll throw in some native Ainu roots. We'll do probably a yokai overview and get some of the big yokai like kappas, and we'll do tanukis and kitsunes and stuff like that. You'll dress as a tanuki for it. Yamamba, we might do. It depends on how far we go into the yokai world. I could probably do an entire stream just on yokai. Yokai, by the way, is the word that Japanese people use for just sort of generic non-human spirit. And that includes things like tanukis and kitsunes and kodamas and all of that cool stuff. So kodamas, tree spirits. The cool little things in Miyazaki films that go like this. Like technically, Totoro would be a yokai. Kanazuki is kind of an interesting concept. Haven't seen it anywhere else. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of unique about Japanese mythology, but we can't talk about that right now. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. I love the fact that people are energetic about this. I'm excited. You want to eat a dinosaur steak now? I don't know where you would find one of those. It might be a little old. Let's see. Where are we going to raid? Where haven't we raided in a while? Want to watch History of Yokais and their relationship to watches. What time does this usually start? Fontaine, 1900 Central Standard Time. I don't know exactly where you are in relation to that. 7 p.m. Yes, 7 p.m. 1900 hours. So, all right. Just brought people over there. Let's go raid cat videos. We have not raided cat videos in some time. And she is doing some art. What's that in the New England area? You're an hour ahead of me. If you were in New England, it would be 8 p.m. Central for you. Or, I'm sorry, 8 p.m. But if you want, you can't get used to us saying 1900. We just say 19. Sorry, Miriu. Most people in the United States don't even say 19. They would say 7 p.m. Fontaine, if you want, though, if you're following, the alert there will go out. But if you want to, you can join our Discord, and I always post notifications about 15 or so minutes ahead of time when I'm going live on the Going Live channel. And you can also hang around and shoot the breeze with us and talk about memes and pictures and maps and cool stuff like that if you want. Shayna's being military. I'm trying. Not militant, though. All right. Anyway, so we're going to go raid cat videos. I'm going to hit the button here. Thank you all so very, very much for hanging out. It was a great show tonight. I feel like we got a lot of chatter. Thank you all so much for adding to the conversation. Forn with some great stuff. Techman with a cool map. Everybody else who just chatted and hung around, and Vern with all of his tangents and all of that stuff. Thank you all for hanging out. This has been a great show. Hope everybody had a good time. I will be back on Thursday, 1900 hours Thursday, and we'll be talking about try our kingdoms and empires in India in our phase from about 200 to 1 BC. So that's where we're going to head. So if you are going to follow us with the raid, we're going to get into Kat's channel. She is a good artist, does traditional art style, really cool to hang out with, really nice individual. Show her some love and some follows if you haven't already. Our raid cry is adventure in all caps if you can, or with as much exclamations as you would like. And if you have the adventure hat, you can throw those. Otherwise, I will see you all on Thursday. Have a great one.
Let's see, this one is not telling me the brand. I don't know what brand this one is. This other one is probably